Good evening. Calling this ordinance meeting to order on May 8th, 2024 at 6:33 p.m. Present with me, I have Counselor Linda Vacan, Counselor Jenny Rivera, Counselor Bartley, and in Council Chambers, we have Counselor Ocasio. Motion to open. Oh, and online, I see Counselor Mag McGrath Smith. Very bright white. It looks very bright outside, but doesn't look that bright over here.
Sorry, I'm on Zoom. We just finished CPA on Zoom, so
That's cool,
I'll
but
think on the next meeting.
you have like some brightness. You have an angle over there in your room where you can see like it's super sunny, and over here we have a building blocking all the sun. But thank you for being present and showing. Entertaining meeting to take up item one.
We have to do the hybrid motion.
Oh, yes, we do. Here it is. Real quick, motion, call the meeting to order. I think it's I don't actually have the language on me. Jeff, do you have the language with regards to
I think I have.
the motion for the hybrid?
All of your members are here in person.
Except for Meg.
Oh, I'm sorry, Meg, sorry.
I wish. No.
Let me get it. Wait, actually, I think there is actually a copy on the clerk desk right behind you.
Let me check.
Oh, I see it, actually. Just had to look up high.
Thank you, Jeff. So, motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection. Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Awesome. So,
Motion to take up item one?
all in favor?
Aye.
Item one is the approval of the minutes from April 24th of 2024.
Motion to accept the minutes?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up item two?
All in favor?
Aye.
Item, item two was filed by Counselor Givner with community support order that $15 pothole claim fee be reduced to zero to reflect practices of neighboring cities and towns. Charging a fee to residents for services paid for by taxes seems redundant. Introduced by ordinance in 2018, this nominal fee generates a negative $400 annually. So Counselor Givner will not be with us today. I would ask to table this, just push it on to the next time.
Second.
All right, awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to take up item three?
All in favor?
Aye.
Item three was filed by Counselor Rivera, myself. Order that the City Council review noise ordinance and require a decibel meter reading before a ticket can be submitted or for music to be asked to be turned down. It is my understanding that the department has necessary devices to measure readings, and we want to be sure that they are being utilized in case citations are challenged in court. The idea for me behind this order pretty much was I understand that they have the mechanisms to be able to actually use or record the sound and measure, and to be sure when I think if they're driving in the car, hopefully if we had a traffic squad in place, right, or something like that, or someone that is assigned to traffic, it would be nice if they could be traveling with this on their persons, just like they would if they're measuring speed, right? And if they hear someone with loud music driving by or making too loud of a sound with engine, motor, whatever it is that passes the meters, same with a building or someone's house, I think it would help for them to actually have the measurable reading that indicates what is a city ordinance or not, on top of just the discretionary, I can hear it, right? And I think for me, when you go to court, instead of being challenged, the citations being challenged in court with no actual merit behind other than just a discretion, here there's actually proof behind what's being said, right, with regards to the reading on the decibel meter. There's a reason why we helped purchase these mechanisms, these tools, and I think ideally for me it would make sense for them to be using them in this process. Counselor Bacon.
Thanks. Do we know that each officer on the road has one? I've just never heard of them being ordered. I mean, they might have just been in the generic supplies or equipment category. I've just never been aware of it.
So, to my understanding, I heard from other officers that there are a couple. It's not that every officer has one, but I would say that not everybody would be attuned to having to enforce the rule. Right? There are certain ones that are assigned to specific traffic duties, and I would say that at least having them carrying the ones that we do have would allow for them to be able to kind of enforce some of these things. It's not to say that if they don't have it, that they can't go tell someone to turn the music down, right? Okay. But it's just that at the end of the day, when they're going to give a citation and there's to have the merit behind what they're saying, it makes more sense to have the proof, at least just for me. Counselor McGrath-Smith.
So I was looking in the ordinances and I can see that we have like section 38 has an entire section just around noise. And I was wondering if that's where we're focused, because one of the things that was interesting to me when I looked through that section is the only places that specific decibels is mentioned is in 38-74, which is really specific to loud audio equipment in motor vehicles. And what's interesting is that, anywhere above that, where it's very specific about honkings, horns, unloading, construction, there's nothing that really mentions music or mentions decibels except for in the section 74, which is specific to motor vehicles. It just made me wonder, do we need to actually address that in ordinance so that they can read decibels, for example, from music from someone's home? I just don't see it here.
So that's in a sense that's news to me, right? Because the understanding was that there is a meter rating, right? But what you're saying goes even deeper, where it's not specified to an establishment that has loud music or someone's home that has loud music. It's specified specifically to a vehicle,
Cars.
Right? That's driving
only
by.
Thing in here, the only time that decibels comes up in this section at all is 34-74 or 38-74. And it says, any unreasonable loud noise is defined as a sound which is greater than 50 decibels in the hours between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. and 70 decibels at other towns or at other times. But because it says this section, I think this section means this one just about motor vehicles. It doesn't necessarily apply up to section, dash 73.
Counselor Vagan?
Thanks. So it would make sense then that it would go with the people that were doing traffic.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we want to really get into crafting ordinances about decibels in home, because that noise ordinance is more about nuisance, and it kind of depends, what would be annoying to somebody who lives in an adjacent apartment would be totally not annoying to somebody who lives, further away. So I don't know about that.
Right. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's just that that's being enforced now through police, and that's the problem, right? So if police are going to someone's home and telling them, here's a ticket because you have loud music, technically that's illegal. We don't have an ordinance on that.
No, because it's a nuisance, and it's making...
So it would be described under a different category?
Right. It's in a different section of the ordinance. It's like you shouldn't be mowing your lawn at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's that same kind of thing. You're not making over X decibels, but you're just making an annoying noise early outside of the hours. That's more of a nuisance thing than how loud are you being.
But that's not the tickets that they're kind of giving, right?
I don't know.
So I would say if
the only one I see is in 70, in the dash 73 section, it talks about section 8 is, 5 is noise near schools and other institutions. The creation of any excessive noise on any street adjacent to a school, institution of learning, church, or court while the same is in session, or adjacent to any hospital, right? It addresses that. There's really nothing that says a homeowner annoying another homeowner.
So if someone calls, right, if someone called and said that there's loud music being played out of this space, right? An officer comes up and they have the mechanism, right? It makes sense for it to be measured. And then to say, okay, I've been called and I've also measured, and it states that you've passed the decibel limit that we've got identified through ordinance or whatever it is. Please turn your music down, or the next time I come back, I got to write you a citation. It makes total sense, like, to actually have the proof, especially if we have the mechanisms and like if we got the tools to be able to do that. Just because right now, then, in a sense, people are off. Police are kind of going forward and are able to write a ticket without actually being able to say that, yes, I have proof that the music is louder than whatever is ordinance.
Yeah. I mean, right now, just there's no decibels tied to the very beginning of the section says noise of any such character, intensity, and duration as to be detrimental to the life or health of any individual or contrary to the public welfare is prohibited. And then it sets up a fine system, right? 100 for the first, 200 for the second, 300 for a third and subsequent offense. And just there's no decibel reading tied to that. It's only to cars, which is like 2 sections later.
Right.
So, real quick, and I see Attorney Bissonnette. I have a quick question. I think there's a gap there, right? And I think that the gap is there because, or hopefully, I'm assuming, because there's a state statute around it, possibly, right? And maybe we as a city are deferring to whatever the state statute is around loud noise from an establishment or a home. Could that be correct or no?
Nice try, Mr. Chairman, but there isn't a state statute.
Okay,
This
great.
is local ordinance only.
All right.
I might suggest that you could look at, if you wanted to add something for unnecessary noise, under Chapter 54, the number of offenses, there is an area, 5412, that's reserved, that could possibly have that host that particular ordinance that you're describing, and include language that any noise complaints must be accompanied by data verifying such complaint.
So, and then would that kind of cover some of the concerns that were brought up by Councilor McGrath Smith?
Let's ask Councilor McGrath Smith.
Yeah, I just think there's decibel readings in cars. So if we want to somehow be ticketing people and you're saying that you want to have decibel readings tied to these noise complaints, then we don't currently have a way of doing that in ordinance. You'd have to amend the ordinance to do so. So do you want to? Is that something that you want to pursue?
That-
Or are we happy with it as it is, where like there's less discretion with cars because there's decibel readings, but there's more discretion to protect folks who are like, well, maybe it's not exactly that, but it's still annoying me.
Right. Councilor Vacan, real quick.
Yeah, so I think because the car issue is readily measurable and those noises are extremely loud compared to music, which might be sort of loud, very loud, extremely loud, I think the decibel measurements would have to be different. And then I don't think, from my perspective, it's so much about the officer having to prove that there's a problem. They're responding to somebody who called them with a problem, right? So I think that's just trying to keep peace in the neighborhood. But I totally hear and agree with you on the traffic one. If somebody's out doing traffic, take the decibel thing with you so you don't get into the contest of
No, so
how loud is it?
yeah, ideally
You know? Yeah.
in making the order, that's kind of the concept, right? Is that was the idea, but I think some of the stuff that Councilor McGrath Smith is bringing up with around, like, if you were called to someone's, and again, I'm with you on someone's home, it should be measured differently, and all those other things should be measured differently. If we were to pursue that, that's a whole nother conversation that's separate. And I guess for the sake of this, maybe we can just design the language on just the traffic for now, and just to take that first step, because the thing is, it is about peace and safety within the community and keeping order. But like, if we're giving citations and like giving somebody $100 ticket, $200 ticket. I want to make sure that there is some form of data point that someone can reference if it gets challenged in court, because then we pay for the officer to go to court, and hopefully that $200 that they got to pay kind of helps cover the officer in court. But I guess for legal, the next step would be is trying to design language that incorporates the use of the data tracking tool. I don't exactly know the name right now, but for any traffic citations, I guess, for police.
Can I ask a question?
Counselor Vagan.
So, through the chair to Attorney Bissonnette, do we need to change our ordinance for the police to use the decibel meter on the traffic noise situation? Do we have to actually change the language? Or can we simply ask that they enforce the ordinance by having the officers carry them and use them?
I think that would be preferable.
Yes.
Okay.
Because a good defense lawyer would attack the ticket if there, for some reason, there wasn't the required
Right.
use of the proper device. I'm thinking about all the rigmarole going on with OUI cases now because of faulty breath tests on the alcohol testers. So there's some opportunities there for us to perhaps send a message to the police department, and we can certainly in law work on a draft about unnecessary noises for neighborhoods that go beyond what's already in there for motor vehicles.
It's interesting because that section, sorry,
Counselor McGrath Smith, go ahead.
it's sort of, because they give an or in there, like the conjunction matters, because it says, like, they're going to define the sound as greater than 50 between certain hours, 70 at other times, or any sound which is discernible at a distance of 100 feet. So because that or is baked into the ordinance, like technically a police officer who's doing traffic duty could say, like, I was within 100 feet and I followed ordinance. I heard it. And they are enforcing the ordinance as it stands.
Right. Go ahead, Counselor Vagan.
So that would still be true. They
Yes.
could still have that discretion.
They could still have that discussion.
But if we send the message, please use the decibel meter
Mm-hmm.
for the traffic ones, it would give strength to it. And to Councilor Rivera's point, not have officers running down to court with no ability to see it through if somebody appeals.
Right. There's that.
Would help that.
That, and we paid for the tools.
If we have them, right?
Yeah. I guess that's the piece, right?
Yeah, so,
But
yeah.
Counselor Bartley, I feel like you have something to say.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, I turned my mic on, so that was a good indication. So thank you. Yeah, I guess I heard anecdotal evidence that they're passing out tickets. I think it might behoove us to sort of get some data from HPD. It also might be wise to have HPD come in and tell us exactly what it is they need. And third of all, when they're, so I'm assuming that it's accurate that they are issuing citations, but are those appealed to district court, or are they appealed to a hearing with the law department? So I guess I'd want to know how that works exactly, what the procedural process is, Mike.
Attorney Bissonnette? That's actually a great question.
That's one that has to, because it's criminal, would have to go to the district court, not the housing court. Our code enforcement cases have been criminally handled in district court, but we have civil matters in the housing court. But this one's tough on jurisdiction. Because it's the police, I would generally say district court.
Well, I guess that's, so police can issue parking tickets too, but if you receive one of those, you don't go to district court, you would generally go to appeal it in front of the solicitor. So I'm just kind of curious as to whether, I mean, I'm taking, Mike, you've done this a lot longer than me, so I would defer to you, but I guess I would just want to know exactly what the procedure is. And frankly, if there is no procedure, why in the world will we not have them go to appeal, if they want to appeal, right to the adjudicatory hearing in front of the solicitor? Why in the world we want them to go in front of himself in Holyoke District if we can make this a civil matter? I mean,
Works for me.
you said there's no state statute on point, so
Local option.
local option should be to keep it as a civil matter. And I don't want anybody getting tickets for stuff like paying fines, but I mean, unless it's become off the wall, but the hammer should be there just in case. So if I had an opinion on this, I hopefully we'll just table this, we get a little more intel on some of these things that have been raised by the counselors, and see what we can do, because it's a quality of life thing. It makes sense.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. Councilor Ocasio?
Thank you. I had a question, so,
Just in case the microphone. Yes.
People can hear you.
okay, better?
And then is your question for us or Attorney Bissonnette?
I think it's for Attorney Bissonnette.
Okay.
Okay, the question is that if a person gets stopped because of the noise, the music, and the officer, like, spots something different, like, as they're stopping them to give them the ticket for the noise, is that, can they, like, search the vehicle or search the person because they saw something different, because they got stopped because of the noise? I'm just saying, just a question.
Well, that's a great question, because that leads, as Councilor Bartley is aware, into sort of a law school exam essay. If it's a legitimate stop, they have no right to search the vehicle. They have a right to request license and registration. They have a right to view the vehicle from where they stand on making that request. So if they're outside the vehicle and they look in, and as the man or woman hands them their driver's license, they see what appears to be a bag of cocaine on the floor, a handgun on the floor, anything illegal on the floor. They can then go beyond what the initial stop was for, make further inquiry, and if necessary, remove the occupant for their safety, for the occupant's safety, and then conduct a search. So there's a whole number of steps, but as long as the initial stop is okay, then it depends on what they're able to see with their own eyes.
So Mike, just let me say, so Mike knows well, it's called a Terry stop. And that would be, that is a law school question in criminal law course. I think I had that. I don't think I did very well. So, nevertheless, these are larger questions that really kind of go, I think, beyond the scope of this. But nevertheless, we should keep in the back of our minds, because this could lead to probable cause and all sorts of other things. So, if we're going to be able to do this, we should have it. You should be supported, because otherwise, say Mike's hypothetical, Chair, right? Say Mike's hypothetical. Say we don't have an ordinance on point, so the criminal defense lawyer comes in and says, "Well, you didn't have grounds to stop in the first place. So what if you had 14 machine guns in the back seat?"
Right. It's kind of the purpose.
You had no right to pull them over.
It's kind of the purpose
So
where
it gets tossed.
where if you're saying that you hear loud music from the car and you're saying you hear it, that's good. But I think that if you actually have the meters and you have the readings, it's no longer you're just saying that. There's actual proof and there's ground to stand on for that stop, making it legitimate. Any other questions, Councilor Ocasio?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll entertain a motion to table with the idea of bringing in the police, or who maybe the chief or someone representing the police, to come in and maybe have a chance to speak on their behalf with regards to processes and how this could impact for or against with regards to how it's laid out right now.
All right, I'll make the motion to table for more information from the police department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
You're the, oh, okay, you got the logo. Entertain a motion to take up,
So moved.
So we're leaving 4 on the table at the request of the maker?
yes.
So I'll make a motion to take up item 5.
So we don't have to do a motion to table it?
I think we can just leave it on the table,
Oh,
can't
we're
we?
not taking 4 up?
No, at the request of the maker?
Yes.
Do we have to officially table it, or can we
Well,
leave it on the
Can I
table?
just read it first? That's fine.
Oh, sure. I guess we could take it up and then table it, so it get read into the record,
Well, what?
if you'd rather.
Okay,
That's-
we can take it up to
that's fine.
All right, so
Chair.
I'll make a motion to take up item 4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If you just read it.
Item 4 is filed by Councilor Anderson Burgos. Ordered that when the use of a building is changing, requiring permits from city departments but not city council approval, a communication be sent to city council informing of the change. This can help councilors keep constituents informed so that concerns can be addressed.
So can I just speak to that?
Councilor Bartley.
So when Damian Cody was the building commissioner, he pretty much started the same time I did, and he would send out maybe monthly, but maybe quarterly reports about all the permits and all the filings that were, I mean, it was great because you really didn't have to go on a search mission for it, and it was just sent right to the computer or left on our desks. And I think that's what Councilor Anderson Burgos is, I believe, is just trying to get at, just trying to, so we can learn more about the business dealings of the city that don't necessarily come before the city council. So I'm not really sure how, putting this in an ordinance form would work, because it seems like it's just a slightly a bridge too far, but to me, that's certainly good government
Yeah,
practice.
it should be best practice.
And I feel like if you make the request and it works, then great. If it doesn't, then you got to go to the next step. And so that's what we've done in Lindell. Remember very well when we had department heads getting bonds, and then they would just go ahead and there's monies left over, and they would just spend it. What? For something non-related to the bond. Stop the music. So we passed an ordinance to say, and now you see it all the time in the financial bond orders, you can't spend any more money until you get further city council approval. It's not that we're trying to cut them off the knees, we're just trying to get understanding as to what's going on. And I believe that's what the Ward 6 council is attempting to do here.
And if I may
Councilor
just,
Bacon?
thank you. I think it might also have had to do with that office that was turned into a group home, and so the use changed from office
Right.
to residential, and nobody knew about it, and then people were wondering and calling, and so
Maybe.
I think it might relate to that one too, but I don't want to speak for the maker, so. But, so a motion to table at the request of the maker, I guess, is in order.
Before we do that, just in you guys mentioning that, and it does make sense. It kind of coincides, and I don't know if it would be micromanaging in a sense to go ahead and try to require the role to kind of like put that out all the time through council ordinance. Like that would be micromanaging in the sense, but I think that I've seen in other communities where if someone is opening a like something new or doing something new within the community, that they at least have to post it in the community, either in the newspaper or on a city posting where it's like, hey, if we're going to open this new facility, you have to post it.
So I
in
wonder
a
if
sense.
they'd argue, well, it's not new, we already have it. We're just
well, yeah.
tweaking it, I don't know.
True.
But anyway,
But anyways,
he'll know.
on the motion,
Motion to table?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up item 5?
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5 was filed by Councilor Ocasio. Ordered whose responsibility to get names to remove handicap sign when individuals no longer live there. That's Okay. So, Counselor Ocasio, if you'd like to just elaborate a little more on that order.
Hi, the reason why I put this order in is because I'm having a lot of issues in South Holyoke and in Springdale area that people are having conflicts with, there's too many handicap signs all over the place, and some of the people are moved out of the area or they're deceased. So I'm just wondering whose responsibility it is to get this information and remove the signs, because right now what I'm doing is, in my block, is like 6 of them, and 4 of them, 2 people are deceased and 2 no longer live there. So I'm going around, seeing who lives there and who doesn't live there to get these signs removed, because, we really tight on parking space. And right now, at this point, as I'm listening, that anybody that has a handicap plate or one of those handicap cars could park in any handicap spot. So I don't see the need for so many in one block.
Thank you. This is an issue that I think for me, I came across too when I first came on, and it makes total sense. I think I would say, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, who's in charge would be the Disabilities Commission, in a sense. No. Of the list of who has the signs?
That's not what, well, if I may.
Councilor Bacon, go ahead.
So what Don Welch had indicated in the past is they have nothing to do with removing them, only doing the evaluation to approve them. So from their perspective, if we get a communication that it needs to be removed and we approve it through the council, however it comes to us, ward counselor, another counselor, then we can just vote it, move it, and then ask DPW to remove it. It doesn't have to go to disabilities, is what he said. And Jeffrey also gave us an update here.
Yes.
And
Look into this.
they affirmed that they're not involved in the decision to remove.
So
we could do it though, because it still is going to have to come out of the ordinance.
I'll read in the update real quick. The Disabilities Commission is not involved in the decision to remove handicap signs. In general, the council would need to be informed by residents when a sign is no longer needed. Sometimes the resident that has requested a sign informs the city council that they're moving, but more often than not, a neighbor or incoming resident will request that a sign be removed if the previous resident has moved. In other instances, in the case of a resident that has passed, a family member or neighbor will sometimes inform a city councilor. Basically, we don't know that one is no longer in use until we are informed. This came up the last time too for me as well. I understand that they don't necessarily, they're not in charge for removing. That's not, I don't feel like that's the question here. I think the question is who's in charge of the list in general, and in understanding like where they're located, because it sounds like right now it comes to the council, we file an order, it goes to them, and then it's approve or disapprove. And if it gets approved, then we don't know how many signs are out there, and we don't know who has signs and who doesn't, in a sense.
Right, but like Carmen is saying, if somebody comes to her and says there's too many signs, this one's died, that one's moved, she can just file the order to please remove the handicap sign at this location, that location, and the other location. And then what they're saying is we can just decide and send it to council and then ask DPW to take them down, to get rid of the extras.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think that where we're at now though is that like then we have a bunch of signs everywhere, right? And then we have to go through the process of figuring out who's who needs it and who doesn't need it, which makes things a little more difficult, I guess, in the role for Carmen right now, right? And not just Carmen, it would be for who the resident is. If a resident is moving into a building and sees there's a handicap space on that street, they don't know which apartment it belonged to. It could have been to their apartment, and they don't even know that. Nobody's going to let them know. So nobody on the block, not even the landlord probably knows.
Right,
right? So,
But not speaking for Carmen, but they're coming to her saying there's too many, so she wants to get rid of them.
Right.
For them.
and I think,
So-
I guess what I'm alluding to, that if there was a list, Carmen can go to the list and say, okay, and then go to the property owner and say, do these people still live here?
Well, they are all in ordinance. They're all in the book.
So then that would mean Jeff would have to go through the book and figure out who's who. So
The clerk should look it up.
do we believe that's the most efficient system?
That's where the list exists, which is why it comes through us to get it either put on or taken off.
Can't we do like other special permits where they come forward and they have to renew?
Oh, I don't know about that. That would be changing the whole process, but I'm
'Cause
not
it-
sure why we do it the way we do it.
I-
But maybe
and I-
Attorney Bissonette knows. There might be a rule. I don't know.
And Attorney Bissonette, you can feel free to chime in right now. And I'm only suggesting this because if someone had to renew on a yearly basis, then automatically you don't have to worry about who's coming on and who's coming
But
off.
see, the problem is they don't own the space.
Uh,
So it's not for Mrs. Smith,
Okay.
right? So they
Yes
can't
and
renew it
no.
because they don't own it.
Yes and no, because they applied for it and got it, so technically they don't own it, but it's in the
True,
right.
but see what Attorney Bissonette says. I don't know.
Attorney Bissonette, what do you think?
Question is, does a need continue to exist in that neighborhood, at that spot? Now, the only way you can know if that's a continuing need is to have an annual, biannual, some period of time check-in. Much like the renewal for license plates. And I think special permits have either a 2 or with extension a 3-year run. So there's a number of mechanisms you could put in place. Question is, do you want to require the ostensible user, the person who applied for it, be required to seek renewal? And if renewal isn't sought, then it expires on its own, which is difficult because of the ordinance. So we'd have to consider how to deal with this in true ordinance fashion, or remove the requirement that it be in ordinance and consider some other mechanism for authorizing these.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley, and then
I definitely get it now. So I think you could readily change the ordinance and you could put it on the application as 1 year. I would only caution you before we do this, because that onus would be on the clerk. And so that would be one more piece of paper along with the dog licenses and the permits and the birth certificate and all the other things that they have to do. That would be another burden on that office. Now, if the clerk feels like she has the manpower to do it, then that's great. If the mayor wants to prioritize that, if she doesn't have the manpower, then maybe the mayor wants to give some more staff to dedicate to that. I think it's reasonable. I don't think it's much to ask somebody who's taken the time to apply for it, just to say, get a letter in the mail and respond in 30 days, 45 days. Do you want to have it renewed? Right. If not, it'll be removed. And then you can have an appeal process there too, I suppose. So, I mean, it would, look, if it's a big thing in certain wards, I guess if that's something that the clerk would go for, then I guess I'd support it. Thank you.
Councilor Ocasio, you still?
Yes, it is a big problem, and I'm just taking out the time to, find out if these individuals still live where they are, what is assigned to them. Because it's not fair. I mean, I'm a resident down there, and it gets hectic. And then I have to step in and explain to them, that I'm trying to get them removed, but I mean, I cannot do all the blocks, I mean, I don't think it's my responsibility to be going block to block and finding out who's who or what's what. I talked to the landlord, and they don't know. They say it's the city. So that's why I might put the order. So everything is the city, so, you know, with the potholes, the same thing. So I'm like, that's why I put the order in. But maybe if they put something like when, in the application, when they apply, like if they move, they have
Tell
to
us.
report it.
Yeah.
Some, you know, something like that. That'll work probably. I don't know.
Thank you. And then Councilor Bacon.
I'm all set.
So then, Councilor Jenny Rivera.
Carmen, thanks for this. And maybe we could work on an easier process. I know it's much longer getting one put in, but maybe taking them out, an easier process. Because right now, yesterday with our meeting going so long, there was an order to take one out, which is not going to be seen now for the next 2 weeks. And one of my residents, well, he's the owner, his tenant moved out. So now his new tenant can't park on the street because that handicap is right there. So now they have an issue because of so many houses on that street, and then the driveways. So she's not allowed to park in the driveway because the handicap. So now we gotta wait, and then for it to go to the city council, and then it has to come here. Then it goes to DPW. Maybe removing it, we could try to find a better process.
Well, if I may.
Councilor Bacon.
So whatever we do, I think it would be fine to let the applicant tell us they don't need it anymore. That would be ideal, and we could just then get it removed out of the ordinance. But I wouldn't want to eliminate the ability of the ward counselor to become aware and also file an order to get it removed. You know, we could keep two paths.
Yeah.
Hopefully one that's quicker.
Yeah, no, I think there.
Right?
I think there should
Yeah.
still be room for a counselor to go ahead
Yeah.
and challenge and get one removed if needed be.
Or boss.
But if there's a space where the counselor doesn't have to do that, right?
Right.
That and it makes it more efficient processing. I
exactly.
think the only concern for me is the
4 ward bosses here.
yeah, I think I think the only concern for me is the concerns that Councilor Bartley brought up with regards to capacity, with regards to the clerk's office.
You gotta run that by our office.
So what I would suggest that for this order, we would say it's complied with because we had the conversation, and that you file another order around developing or bringing in the clerk's office to talk about creating a process around this and having the conversation. Because this one pretty much was just finding out who's responsible, and right now it sounds like nobody is, in a sense, right? And I mean, the clerk's is responsible for taking in the paperwork, but I don't know if they're keeping track of a running list of who has and who
It's
doesn't.
mostly been the ward counselors doing it.
Right. So like, filing another order just to be able to specifically flush all that out and focus on that. Councilor
I
Bartley.
actually like that suggestion, and I'll happily help you and co-file it with you if you want. And then, but I really need you to talk to Brenner first. So I'll say that this order is complied with.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have to do roll call for that?
I don't think.
Just asking.
No, Jeff explained that in his email. No, we don't.
That's what I
It's
thought.
a final action.
Yeah, Jeff said we don't have to do it.
All righty then.
Final action.
And then entertain a motion to take up item 6.
So moved?
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6 is filed by Councilor Ocasio. Order that DPW install a handicap sign at 624 Southeast Street for Sylvia Reyes. Here I have a communication from the Disabilities Chair. They reviewed the application on May 2nd, and the application has been approved at the request of the interim engineer. They're waiting for measurements from the interim engineer.
I'll make a motion to approve this, Mr. Chair. and-
Second.
And ask the law department to send us the measurements for our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
Aye.
I don't need a roll call vote. Let me just,
Take 7 off the table, please.
perfect.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7 was filed by Councilor Givner. Order that DPW install a handicap sign on 109 B Street for Pablo Gonzalez. The communication here is Disabilities Chair states they reviewed the application, and Liana Pasialis is her name, I believe. I hope I pronounced it right. Reviewed the application on May 2nd, 2024. Denied the application, and here's what stated. There's already a handicap parking sign in the front of the neighbor's house. I think hoping for a dedicated space in front of their home is for their use, but we cannot approve personalized spaces, so that application is denied because there is already a space within reasonable distance of the applicant's home. There's also another not too much further.
So I'll make a motion
So,
to, oh, sorry.
So,
Counselor, it also says Counselor Givner plans to reach out to the resident.
right,
So I'll make a motion that we accept the opinion of the Disabilities Chair and deny the application.
you sure?
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
So did the counselor want to follow up with the applicant
That's what
first?
I think that the counselor wanted to figure out if they could follow up with the applicant, and that they're supposedly going to try to review another space that's nearby or whatnot. But I would prefer just to table it because she's not here and able to speak on it. Just for now, and then the next time
Okay,
she comes
motion
in.
table.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
take up number 8, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 8 was filed by Councilor Bacon. Order that a handicap sign be installed at 34 Maplecrest Street for Victor Acosta.
I'll make a motion that this is complied with because that is on private property, so it doesn't come under our jurisdiction. And I have let the resident know that he needs to follow up with the management
And I'll
company.
second that motion.
And just for the sake of the report out from the people from the Handicap Commission, they said exactly what you stated, Councilor Bacon. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to take number 9 off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 9 is a zone change application for IG to DR for Holik Housing Authority at 662, 666, 674, 680, 702, and 710 South East Street. To build rental and home ownership units. This is continued from the public hearing that was closed on April 24th. We have communication from the planning board. It reads, please be advised that as its April 23rd meeting, the Holy Planning Board discussed the above referenced zone change request. After consideration of all the information and testimony presented during the public hearing, the board voted 4-0 to recommend to the Ordinance Committee of the City Council that the attached zoning map change from IG to DR be adopted. The planning board discussed that the new zoning is appropriate for the neighborhood, will provide much more needed housing, and is consistent with the historical character of the neighborhood.
Make a motion to recommend approval of the zone change to the City Council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We should do roll call on that.
Aye. Roll call vote. Councilor Bacon,
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Bartley,
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
and Councilor Israel Rivera. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeas.
Motion to take up item 10.
So move, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 10 is ordinance section 7.8 wireless telecommunication facilities and antenna being amended to include small wireless facilities. We have something on this one too as well. From planning. The planning board, please be advised that on April 9th meeting, the Holy Planning Board discussed the above referenced zone change request. After consideration of all the information and testimony presented during the public hearings, the board voted 5-0 to recommend the Ordinance Committee of the City Council that the attached zoning text change be adopted. Please see attached draft of the amendment. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So I was hoping somebody from planning would be here because I have a question about how the permitting for the small wireless will work and whether residents will get noticed at all as part of the permitting process. It's a more complicated situation than it appears on its face because there's a lot of scientific data being collected, but no substantial studies that have come out with any findings. And right now, the only ability to limit these is related to aesthetics and location and color. And I find it very troubling that there can be no consideration given to distance, health considerations, et cetera. And as part of this very long process, because we all see all the dates, there has been a lot of requests for information with no information really available relative to the concerns that have been raised around health issues. And when we reached out to the Board of Health in the past, they weren't able to contribute anything because there is no sort of scientifically validated feedback, although more from Europe than here. We're getting more and more feedback about these relatively serious potential health considerations to do with all these waves flying around. So I think for our purposes right now, we are limited by the federal law, certainly, but I would just like to try to be sure before I vote for this that any and every step that allows input from the abutters that might have any consideration in their environment, I just want to make sure it's part of the process. It probably is, but I just would like to know it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor McGrath-Smith?
I want to second almost everything that Linda Vacan said around, I think it's very troubling that they go to great extent to say that we can't care about health concerns. It makes me very suspicious and does not feel great that they went out of their way to say that. And while there aren't great studies here, and you sort of have to ask yourself why that is the case, there are studies that have started to happen in Europe that have shown potential links between these small wireless facilities and cancer, and they're already popping up everywhere. So like, since I've gone through that PowerPoint that we had access to, I now know what I'm looking for, and they are popping out all over across the city, although primarily down in wards 1 and wards 2. So I think clearly it makes sense that we have to have an ordinance around knowing where these are, and I really think that we have to have some sort of noticing requirement, although I don't know what that noticing requirement looks like, or if folks will understand, given the limitations in the legislation, or what we can and can't say about the potential, effects of these wireless facilities. I don't know if they will understand the notice that we're allowed to give them, or what that notice might look like. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I would say that I agree with the both of you and what you're saying, especially the feeling that I get here is that regardless, our hands are tied in a certain circumstance, because as much as we would like to do what we would think is best for our community, whether it is allowing them and then maybe putting in some sort of mechanism where it's protecting the community in case some study in the future shows that does have negative impacts. At the moment, we're kind of limited, right? And even if we do, the unfortunate part is, like, I agree with being able to put out that notice, or having them put out notice that they're going to put up a new facility somewhere, or a new small wireless. I don't want to say facility because I don't consider that a facility, but yeah, whatever. Yeah. But even if they are able to give notice, it's not like this is the part that's going to frustrate me, is that like a resident doesn't really have any recourse to do anything about it. Like, they're going to call us as city councilors, and we can't necessarily enforce. And not saying that we don't care or don't do nothing about it, but right now we're in a situation where by federal law we kind of can't limit them.
But if I may.
Go ahead, Councilor
So
Bacon.
what I just wanted to understand from the planning board, because the permitting is done by the planning board, I just wanted to understand what their process is. Are they going to notify the abutters so that people can at least come in and express
Right.
their concerns or opinions, understanding the limitations given the law, which I
That makes
really
sense.
wonder about that, because usually every other law is the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
No, I
out of our pay grade.
I agree with you on that. So I'm at the liberty of the body right now. If we would like to, go ahead, Councilor Bartley.
Sean Gonsalves was negative on this, and we all know that. I don't feel like having Mr. Rivers have to weigh in on this and spend inordinate amount of time reviewing this, when we all know that there are so many either loopholes or so many unknowns relative to, it's been brought to our attention until I think we get more data. I don't think we can put this into our ordinance book. So I'm prepared to take a vote on it now. And in other words, I mean, this is, we can already tell by the number of meetings you've had on this, it's just not, it's never gonna be ready for prime time in this term. And I think that something really should be done perhaps with more studies and more real accurate data relative to health concerns, particularly with Holyoke. But until such time, I think we have to support the best we can technology, and that's how I feel. So I don't really want to have limits on it. The only thing I would consider doing is if we are, just like they have to put up telephone, HG&E has to put up, when they put up wires and poles and all that, they have to have a public hearing. Well, if we really want to have them come in for a public hearing when they put up these little boxes, okay, then file that. But this right here is, I think, just way, I mean, look at Zord. I mean, this is way too cumbersome. It'll be an unbelievable burden for the law department and I think for the city. So my position is take a pass for now.
So what's the motion? Go ahead, Councilor Bacon.
Yeah, no,
What's the motion then,
I
Martin?
didn't really know what he meant.
Yeah, what's the motion then?
What he meant is give it leave to withdraw. That's what he meant. That's my motion.
So then I have a question.
Councilor Bacon, then McGrath Smith.
So my question would be, this is so difficult because I think they're going up left and
They
right
are.
everywhere.
They are.
And now we just have no idea where they are.
I just seen a new one across the
But-
street from the
but
post office.
Without anything, we have nothing. Although when I read this didn't make me feel any better either because it's total indemnification from everything for anything forever. So, I mean, it basically says do whatever you want, put it wherever you want, and you'll never be in any trouble ever for any reason, which I don't think is great either. I mean, I feel like this is a catch-22, and I'm all very supportive of HG&E, which probably is where a lot of the stuff's going up. So it's not that I'm, not favorable on them, but I just think this is too much carte blanche. I don't know. That's me. But so I'll second the motion and see what the committee wants to
Want this
do.
under discussion, if I may?
Councilor
I'm
McGrath Smith first, and then I got you.
Oh, sorry, Meg.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm right with Linda on this one. It's just that I don't want to see it move forward, but also not moving it forward means that we then still have no control over it. It will just happen with no oversight at all. It's the question of like, do I want oversight of something that I don't want to happen at all? And also I will have very little control over once we say yes to it. I'll just have some understanding of where it is actually. Or do I want to, on principle, say like, no, this is terrible. I don't want to say yes to this thing, but have no information on where they're going. I mean, it's really awful. I don't feel good about either choice, but I guess if they're going to go up without us having any control over them anywhere anyway, if we say no, or if we give leave to withdraw, then maybe it's better to say yes and get reporting on where they are. So at least people can be noticed and know this thing is going up. I don't know. And that's a good question, Ron. Is it HG&E or is it, I have no idea who's putting them up, but they are popping up everywhere.
So
Real quick, Councilor Bartley.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilor Bacon. Yeah.
Okay, so on the second to the last page, on the front of the page, 7.8, it says each permit issued by the planning board. So they're going to be issuing the permit. And each license agreement shall be made upon the condition that the applicant agrees to the following conditions. And it's a standard indemnification clause. That the city will be held harmless to whatever harms right? Am I reading that correctly, attorney at the table?
I hope I'm in the right section, 7.8, just tell me
Right.
the paragraph where you're,
Amending 7.8 wireless telecommunication facilities and antennas.
oh, problem is I got multiple 7.8s here, so,
Oh,
which,
it's the second to the last page
Oh.
at the bottom half.
okay, yeah, they had a maybe a duplicate page, okay, so,
I just, and that made me wonder, so if they're issuing a permit, what I just wanted to understand is, in the process of issuing a permit, do the people have to come in and do the people where it's going know it's happening? And I just don't know what the planning board permit process is for this, or what it will be. And then the other thing is, for all the ones that are already up everywhere, I don't know how we're ever gonna know where those are. I mean, they're already wherever they are.
Attorney Bissonnette, I see you have come on screen. You have,
I'm wondering how much tracking G&E is doing on these installations. They may have a much better handle than we would. Relative to the public hearing portion, anytime a permit licensing authority on the local level conducts a hearing that results in a permit required to hold a public hearing, and in Hoyoke, notification of abutters is required as well. So I think those concerns are covered.
Okay.
And perhaps if G&E is tracking these, that might give you an out as to where they are located, where you consider other options with regard to this ordinance.
real quick, and then I recognize you, Councilor Bartley. I think for me, somebody's making money off of these antennas, right? And we're not to say it that way, but where does that lie in the city, in a sense, right? Like, is there a tax being paid somehow? Is there a way to put that as a mechanism in place to help track or keep attention to what's going up and where?
Well, the one positive thing about this is a permit would be issued and you'd know where it is,
Yeah.
and it would have a license that, what does it say? I don't know if they have to renew it each year.
Because I think my fear is that it becomes like the handicap sign situation, where you got a bunch of them everywhere and you don't even know who has them, which ones work, and who's managing them anymore.
Well, if they're issuing a special permit or a permit, there's then has to be a list. Does it say annual renewal? This is what I thought.
Councilor
I read,
McGrath Smith?
but I'm not sure.
I honestly think this is the best process we're gonna get, given where the state is at right now with these small wireless facilities. They want them to move forward. They've given them carte blanche. There's nothing to protect us beyond what is baked into here. And right now we have no protection at all. We don't even know where they are, and there's no noticing or tracking. I think that we have to say yes, move this forward, and we have to then wait for the state to give us the light to stand on to do anything else. This is the best we're gonna get until the state shifts their thinking on this. The reality is people want consistent internet service. Like, that's why they're going up. People want internet access everywhere. I know, my husband's in IT. My house is wired, right? I've got internet access points everywhere. There's like 5 across my house. Like, you could reach the internet in my driveway, in my backyard. Like, it's nuts. People want consistent internet. Like, that's why they're putting it's cheap, right? It's not seen as it's seen as the best alternative to an eyesore, because it's not a huge pole with a massive thing on it. It's just a little box you're tucking in on a corner of a house or in a municipal building, right? Like, I totally see why they're moving forward with these. They're the cheap, affordable version of creating the everyman's internets everywhere. And I'm very worried. I don't love at all the studies coming out of Europe around cancer. And right now, nothing is changing at the state level. And if we say no, then there's just no tracking and there's no noticing. I think that's an equity issue. People have to know. So I do think that we should vote yes. I think this is the best that we're gonna get until things change at the state level, and that could be years away. When is there gonna be an actual study that comes forward on this in the US with whose money? Because it's not gonna come from the government, because they've said yes, they're moving this forward, right? We're gonna be waiting for a study for 5-10 years. So I think we have to say yes and move this forward. It's the best we're gonna get. The state's not gonna change on this anytime soon.
Counselor Bacon?
So, yeah, it's really I think the federal law that's actually driving it at this point, maybe even more than state.
It was the FDA, I think. Right?
Yeah. So, but to an earlier question that was asked, they will be executing a license agreement. So that would have to come to the city council, right? If it's a license agreement? So we would know? Yes, no, I don't
Attorney
know.
Bissonnette?
Usually we see licenses, and they would be paying the city an annual recurring rate of $270 per year per facility.
Came up with that.
It says it right here.
Oh, no, I see it.
Oh, I mean, I don't know who came up
Came
with
up with that number.
I don't
What's
know.
that based on?
I have no idea,
Make
but
it up?
I'm just,
I mean, I'm just asking. And the other part, I'm sorry, I know we're not a roundtable, but the other part, Mr. Chair, is the facilities cannot be located on tribal lands.
Isn't this all tribal land? in this?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, we had candidates saying the whole city of Holyoke is a tribal land. I mean, so is this a cute little way to sort of?
Official tribal land.
Well, do you know what the Code of Federal Regulations 36 CFR 800 is? Because I sure as heck don't.
I don't.
So I'm just saying, I mean, how's that getting injected in there? So it's like, you really open up a can of worms when you do this. I think, sometimes it's better to say, let's take a pause, and why don't we see, is another municipality doing this already, Mr. Chair? I have no idea. But if they are, I'd rather not be the guinea pig. I'd rather sort of see what's happening elsewhere, and then maybe get some directions from,
So right now, the motion is for leave to withdraw, and it was seconded. So, as I don't hear an amendment, I would go with that vote first, and if it passes, then it's leave to withdraw. If it does not pass, right, then the next motion would probably be to table
Or whatever.
or to try to pass, whichever one, anyone. So on the motion for leave to withdraw, I would say roll call vote. Counselor Bacon,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith,
No.
Counselor David Bartley,
yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera,
No, I'm gonna go with Megan.
and then Counselor Rivera. I'm only gonna say no, just because I feel like we should have something in place, even though.
All right, well, that's fair.
Yeah.
We often have
Can I-
split votes in committees.
Yeah.
It's not fatal.
As much as I want to leave to withdraw it too.
What's the motion? Do you want to move it forward? I mean,
So I liked, can I just say though, that I liked what Counselor Bartley just said, and I'm wondering, can we just table one more time, and can we just see what other municipalities around us have done? Let's look at their language, and let's have that context before we take a vote to move it forward.
Okay, so if I may,
Counselor Bacon.
just as a technical point, we've taken a vote and the committee denied the motion.
Yes.
So we would have to reconsider our vote to table, if we want to table it
Okay, so motion to reconsider
and table it.
the votes so that we can table.
Yeah, so I would make that motion if that's what the committee wants.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So now it's tabled in committee.
All right.
Awesome.
And is that the end of the agenda?
But,
That is.
and you know what, this will give us time to read it more thoroughly too.
Yes.
I don't print everything out at home, and I have a hard time reading this kind of legalese on the
Yeah.
screen. I have a hard time reading it on paper too, but, it's a lot of technical words.
Perfect. Thank you.
To adjourn, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You guys have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night now.
Good night.